The story of Abraham, as written in the Bible, is a powerful narrative about faith, obedience, and God's unwavering promises. Abraham, initially known as Abram, was called by God to leave his homeland, his family, and everything familiar to him. God spoke to him in Genesis 12, 1-3. The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." At this point, Abram was 75 years old, and though childless, he believed God's promise. In faith, he left behind everything he knew, trusting God's direction. This was the first of many times where Abram had to walk by faith, not knowing exactly where God was leading him. As Abram journeyed, he continued to trust God, but the years passed and still he had no child. In Genesis 15, 1-3, Abram expressed his concern. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward." But Abram said, "Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus." And Abram said, "You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir." Despite Abram's doubts, God reaffirmed his promise. In Genesis 15, 4-6, God responded, "Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir." He took him outside and said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them." Then he said to him, "So shall your offspring be." Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. This moment was crucial. Although Abraham and Sarah were old, God promised them a child, and Abram believed despite the impossibility from a human perspective. This belief in God's promise is why Abraham is often called the father of faith. Years later in Genesis 17, God established a covenant with Abram, changing his name to Abraham, meaning father of many nations. God said to him in Genesis 17, 4-5, "As for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations." Sarah's name was also changed, and God promised that she would bear a son. Abraham laughed at the idea as he was 100 years old, and Sarah was 90. In Genesis 17:17, Abraham questioned, "Will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? But God reassured Abraham that his promise would come to pass, and in Genesis 21, 1-3, the promise was fulfilled. Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. Isaac's birth was a miraculous fulfillment of God's word, showing that God is always faithful to his promises, no matter how impossible they may seem. However, the ultimate test of Abraham's faith came in Genesis 22, when God asked him to sacrifice Isaac, his only son. In Genesis 22, 1-2, God tested Abraham. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." Abraham obeyed without question, trusting God even in this heart-wrenching command. As he prepared to sacrifice Isaac, an angel of the Lord stopped him, and God provided a ram as a substitute. In Genesis 22, 12-13, the angel said, "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. This powerful moment revealed that God not only tests our faith, but also provides for us in our time of need. Abraham named that place Jehovah-Jireh, meaning the Lord will provide. Through Abraham's life, we learn about faith, obedience, and the certainty that God's promises will always come to pass. Even when the path seems unclear and the waiting seems long, God is faithful to those who trust in him. Abraham's journey of faith is a reminder that when we walk with God, his promises are sure and his provision is abundant.